Today we're breaking down the top 5 myths about Section 8 investing, and stick around because some of these might completely change your perspective on Section 8. Hello everybody, I'm Joseph Khateri, realtor in the state of Virginia. I've helped hundreds buy Section 8 houses, so if you're ready to start making smart investments and maximizing your cash flow, you're in the right place. And if you're on the fence about whether Section 8 is worth it, well, stick around because I'm going to say a lot in this video that might change your mind. Myth number 1, and this is the one that I get most often asked: are Section 8 tenants problematic? And that is a complete myth. The reality, most Section 8 tenants are just regular people trying to survive. Many are single mothers, single parents, the elderly, the disabled. This Section 8 voucher provides a lifeline for those that need it, and having a safe home is their top priority. In fact, the average Section 8 tenant often stays longer, usually on average 5 years. Again, why? Because moving is tough when you have a voucher. It is. The program is super strict, and if the tenant gets evicted, poof, their golden ticket of free rent for life just disappears. It's almost impossible to get back on Section 8. It's tied to your social security number, so it creates a major incentive for them to follow the rules. For example, we can look it up right now. If we go ahead and look at the Chicago Section 8 waiting list, it can take several weeks to several months. And there are plenty of sources saying that some families have had to wait years, sometimes decades. And in fact, it even says the national average is about 2.5 years or 28 months. If you just waited 2.5 years to get on this program, there's no way that you're going to immediately throw out your chance by getting an unapproved pet inside of the household. Or at least you're less likely to. For those that are not aware, President Trump also made some, or wants to make some, HUD changes. There's going to be a decent chunk of the workforce that is going to be laid off, and he has hinted at changing some criteria. Nothing's been really set in stone yet, but I personally believe he's going to make vouchers harder to get, and not harder in necessarily a bad sense. They are going to be given to those who clearly need it. So for example, it's not going to just be given to the guy who's lied on his tax returns for 2 years. It's going to be given to people with disabilities, people with children. They're going to be put as higher priorities. Again, this is mostly hypothesis, but if that does end up happening, then landlords are actually benefiting from it, where we're getting more qualified tenants. Now, whether this actually happens or not, it's up in the air. And the downside is that a lot of HUD employees are being laid off, so Section 8 will be slower. So it's kind of a pro and a con here. Myth number 2, Section 8 payments are unreliable. I hear this all the time, people worrying, oh, is the payments going to be inconsistent? Are they going to be delayed? But here's the truth. HUD is going to be direct deposited every single month to your bank, at least as of me recording this video. And I'm citing previous experience as the main factor in this. For example, during COVID, which was a national crisis, HUD was still paying direct deposit every single month, exact same time. There were no delays. Now, the only time that there is going to be a delay is if you fail your inspections, which, yes, that is part of this process. You have to pass your inspections. I do go over in my course how to effectively do this, as well as in my previous YouTube videos, but HUD adjusts based on the tenant's income. So if something happens like the tenant loses their job, ironically, that means that HUD might pick up more of the rent and the tenant has to pay less of the rent. So that is ironically a positive for you. But either way, your check will always remain the same, whether it be from a portion of the tenant or the government every single month. And in fact, the calculation to figure out how much the tenant will pay is they have to submit their bank statements every single month to HUD. So HUD will review the bank statements, look at all of the income, and typically make them pay 33 to 40% of their income towards the rent. So if they're making $1,000 a month according to their pay stubs, they typically will pay $300 to $400. If they are making $0 a month, then guess what? They're paying $0 a month. Myth number 3, Section 8 rents are lower than average. Oh my lord, this one is really wrong. Section 8 on average pays 10 to 20% higher than market rents. I know that's a little bit weird, right? You think, oh, these are cheaper homes we're going for. It should be the opposite. But no, HUD sets the fair market rent, FMR, based on the local market data. So in areas where affordable housing is scarce, which if I'm being honest is like 99% of the US, then prices will raise a little bit because it's simple supply and demand. And in fact, let's go ahead and look at an example right now. So here's just a random Birmingham property I found. I have not really looked at this if I'm being honest, but this says $70,000 500. And on average in this zip code, we are seeing, let's go ahead and check, 3 bed, 1,100 square feet. It seems like it is going for about $1,000, $1,100 sometimes. But according to HUD, we're actually seeing homes similar to this go for up to $1,300. So no, Section 8 does not pay less. That is a complete myth. And if you're finding any of this useful, please go ahead, click the subscribe button down below, and go ahead and click the first link in the description if you're interested in joining my Section 8 mentorship program it just launched. In it, I work with you one-on-one. It's not just a random PowerPoint and then I ghost you. I work with you personally one-on-one, guiding you, mentoring you, teaching you, and assisting you in buying a profitable rental, getting a Section 8 tenant, and getting it rented. So book a free strategy call down below right now. Myth number 4, Section 8 properties are hard to maintain. So this one is one that I hear all the time. Section 8 tenants will trash your property. And look, wear and tear happens with any tenant. I'm not gonna lie about that. Whether they're Section 8, whether they're market rent. But with Section 8, there is an additional layer of accountability that actually ends up supporting the argument that no, they're not going to trash the place and steal the copper. In fact, the tenant is very less likely to do that compared to the others in the area. Like if you're buying in a C-class neighborhood, D-class neighborhood, then maybe those on the same street will want to do that, but not your tenant because they're going to lose their voucher. And I actually talk a lot about in my course how to avoid the down the street neighbor breaking into your property. But a lot of it boils down to, setting up security cameras while it's vacant, better locks, as well as getting specific types of insurance. What you can get is you can get something called special form insurance, which is known as all risk or open peril insurance. Yes, it is more expensive. However, instead of regular insurance where they'll just say,
"Oh, sorry, vandalism wasn't included in the inclusions for this,"
and then they're going to deny you. That's not really how it works in this case. This almost is the exact opposite, where it says,
"Oh, vandalism wasn't excluded, so we're going to approve it."
So yes, if you get special form insurance, it is more expensive typically. You will be able to cover instances such as vandalism, theft, burglary, and pretty much anywhere you can think of that isn't part of their exclusions. And I only recommend having this while the property is vacant. If it's not vacant and if there's a tenant in there, you don't typically have much to worry about because they're home. And in my experience, the tenant themselves isn't who trashes the property. It's everyone else who looks at a nice, renovated, empty home and wants to take stuff from it. HUD also conducts their annual inspection every single year to make sure the property is in good and safe condition. So what I like to do is 6 months before the inspection, I typically do a quick inspection where nothing serious, just making sure everything's working. And then 2 weeks before the actual Section 8 inspection, I always recommend clients to do a thorough inspection, almost identical to what Section 8 will do. And if you're curious about what their inspection looks like, you can actually just Google HUD inspection checklist or go to the link in the description, and it will be just a PDF document right here. And in it, it will literally have everything that they are going to check. This is all just public information here. You can hire a handyman to do it, or if you're using property managers, you can make them do it as well. And what I like to do is I say, if the tenant manages to successfully pass on their first try the inspection without any complaints, they receive 10% off their portion of the rent. And I'm not saying 10% off total rent, I'm saying 10% off of their portion. So if they pay $100 a month towards the rent, then we take off $10. If they pay $400, we'll take off $40. This just creates a good incentive on both sides, really. It lets them report the big stuff and stuff that will fail the inspection immediately instead of waiting on it. We don't want a leaking faucet to not get reported immediately because that could cause water damage and fail the inspection. And the tenant is happy because all of the important things get fixed as soon as it's reported. Myth 5 is that you lose control of your property. I'm not even too sure where this one comes from, but I've gotten DMs about it. A lot of landlords think that once you enroll in the Section 8 program, that means the government can control your actions and control what happens to the property. That just isn't true. I'm not too sure who's circulating that rumor, but you are in charge. The landlord is fully in charge here. You still screen the tenants like any other landlord would. You can decline applications as long as you're declining them based on fair housing laws. You write your own lease terms. HUD only requires just the standard lease addendum that, HUD gives. And beyond that, it's really your policies that take into effect. You just can't be violating fair housing laws, but that applies to any tenant. For example, if you are not super confident that the rent prices will stay high in your location, or you just really like the tenant, etc., you can put them into 3-year leases, 5-year leases, 7-year leases, as long as they're comfortable and consent to it. And in return, you can even give them some added incentives. For example, if they sign a 5-year lease versus a 1-year lease, you are going to upgrade everything to be stainless steel. That's just an example. And if a tenant isn't following your lease, noise complaints, unauthorized people living there, not paying their portion of the rent, then you still have the right to enforce eviction just like you would with any other tenant. The only difference in the eviction part is that you first would call the housing authority and simply tell them, hey, they're violating the lease terms in this way, and here is the evidence. And then HUD would first handle things and call the tenant, almost giving them a warning. And then after that, you can evict them if they continue. I've noticed though that when HUD gives a warning, the tenant typically shapes up because they're about to lose their voucher. And then at the end of the lease term, you can either find a new tenant, or if they've shaped up, you can continue. But again, these vouchers are liquid gold. Nobody wants to lose them. You almost never can get back on it after you get evicted, and eviction stays with your record. All right, and those are the top 5 Section 8 myths busted. Section 8 isn't scary. It's one of the most stable, reliable, long-term strategies to generate rental income, especially during recession times. And it's arguably one of the few ways that it is a win-win for both parties. You get a reliable paycheck and the tenant gets a non-slumlord, hopefully you guys are not slumlords, who provides safe housing, and they pay almost none of it. Now, I'd love to hear from you guys. Go ahead, comment down below what has been the biggest hindrance to you personally investing in Section 8. Drop a comment below and I will answer your questions. And don't forget, if you're ready to start investing in Section 8 and don't know where to start, go ahead and book a free strategy call using the link in the description. As always, I'm Joseph Khateri, realtor in the state of Virginia, and have a nice day.